Welcome to the English with Kirsty podcast from www.englishwithkirsty.com. Here I'll be sharing with you tips, information and other learning resources so that you can improve your business English. Hi everyone, and welcome back to the English with Kirsty podcast. And today we're talking about telephone skills, but not in the normal way. I do have some information about telephone skills, and I'll link to it on the show notes page for this episode. But today I'm talking about when it's not good to use the telephone, because I think some people think that they have to use the telephone all the time, or that it is really important to have good telephone skills. But I think our relationship with the telephone in business is changing. Certainly mine has, partly because I'm doing different things now. I'm working in a different industry, and the way that I use the telephone is a lot different. But I think that's not just me. It happens across other industries as well. And whilst there is still definitely a place for the telephone, it's not always the best tool to get the job done. So I think certainly people who are maybe a bit more self-conscious about speaking English, or maybe people who don't like the telephone as much, can be encouraged by managers or colleagues, or just pick up the telephone, it's quicker. And sometimes it is, if you've got something that you need to discuss, or if you want to build a relationship with customers or colleagues, sometimes it definitely does help. Sometimes if there's a problem and you need to reassure the person that you're doing something, then it's good. Or if you need to find out more information, it can be quicker than having emails going backwards and forwards all the time. But I think many of us now are in a we kind of change the way we do things in our personal lives. So I think about how I communicate with my friends, for example. A lot of the time it's I message them, maybe Facebook Messenger, maybe WhatsApp, maybe an iMessage, maybe an email. So a lot of the time I'm dealing with people all the time, my friends, my family, but it's not always by calling them anymore. And I think that's something to do with me as an individual, because I just find it a more efficient way to get things done. But also it's kind of the culture that we're living in too. We do tend to text people more because people are moving around, people are busy. I'm in a lot of meetings throughout the day, so if I had people calling me all the time, it would be kind of annoying, because most of the time they wouldn't get through to me because I'd be in a meeting and not taking calls. So I do provide telephone training, and I do help people, because it is different than speaking to people face to face. Firstly, because speaking in itself is different, and secondly, because you don't have any of those visual clues. You can't see people's facial expressions, you can't lip read, and I don't think people realize how much they do lip read. If they can see people's lips moving, they can sometimes work out the things that they didn't hear. But there are times when the telephone just isn't the best answer, and I think it's okay to say that. It's like, yeah, okay, this isn't the best way to get the job done, so I'm not going to do it that way. And don't feel bad about it, because that's the main thing here. And certainly there were times when I was learning German when I never picked up the telephone. I always did everything by email, and I didn't have the choice because I didn't feel confident enough. That's not the case now. It's more of an active choice. Sometimes I still send emails because that's just easier for me. I don't have to rely on the other people being there when I need to speak to them. I can just send them an email. They can answer me in the middle of the night if they want to. It's not going to wake me up. But it's all about having a choice. So feeling that it's okay to do whatever you think is the best way to get the job done. So when isn't the telephone the best option? I think there are certainly times, as I said, when it is a good option, but there are other times when it isn't. So, for example, if you want somebody to take time reading something, so if you have a document, for example, that you want them to look at, then it doesn't make any sense to call them about it, because they're gonna, unless you're gonna stand there reading this entire document to them, they need some time. So yeah, there's certainly a possibility that you might want to have a call with them afterwards to say, well, hey, what did you think about this? What can we improve? If you don't want them just to use track changes. But when you're sending somebody something you want their opinion on, and they have information to read, then I would suggest that a telephone call isn't the best option there, because the other person A, needs time to read it, and B, needs time to think about what their response is going to be. Some people need more time than others. Some people like to reflect on something a bit more before they come up with an answer or really know what they think about it. I mean, if you think something's terrible, then that's kind of easy to say. But if you're thinking, I don't know about this, I need to think about the pros and cons, and is this going to work, or I think it's good but there are a few things you need to change, that kind of thing. So if you pounce on somebody as soon as you've sent them the information or given them the information, that's not really fair because they haven't had chance to think about it and to look at it. So certainly if something's going to take somebody a while, you can't assume that they're just going to drop everything and do your thing next, because people have lives, they have other work to do. So give them some time and then come back to them and ask for their opinion. Okay, if it's really urgent, maybe you could summarize it on the telephone and say, what do you think about this? But I'm talking more about proposals or documents or papers, things that will take a bit longer to read. So calling someone then isn't the smartest thing to do. The second one, often people did used to use the telephone for arranging meetings. Certainly at the beginning of my career, I spent some time working as an assistant, a personal assistant, and a lot of phone calls were made about meetings and sorting things out. But then as I got more people using their Outlook diaries, it became easier, especially if you have a lot of people to get to a meeting. Maybe calling isn't the best idea. If you can see when people are available, then you can suggest a date when people are available. But I think now often we're moving away from calls to arrange meetings because maybe it's okay if somebody has an assistant that's sitting in the office and that isn't spending all their time in meetings, that kind of thing. Maybe it is good to speak to the assistant then. But if people are managing their own diaries and they travel a lot or they're in meetings a lot, then sometimes it is just quicker to send an email and say, I'm sorry, I need to move the meeting that we'd arranged, or do you have any time next week, or whatever you want to say. But certainly for me, all my customers now send me messages if they want to change a meeting with me, unless they do it when I'm actually in another meeting with them. But I don't have people ringing me up all the time to arrange meetings because that really wouldn't work for me, because I'm in meetings a lot of the time. I don't have time to take calls to arrange meetings. And I think a lot of people are like that too. If they're traveling a lot, they don't always have their diary with them. So sometimes just sending somebody an email saying, are you available at this time, or suggesting some other times is quicker. Sometimes it's not, but I just think it's something to bear in mind, that calling to arrange meetings isn't always the best way. Sometimes people want information from me that is long, so it's not a yes or no question. They want some details about something, so some figures or some like a longer explanation or how to do something. And then sometimes I just think, why did you call me? Because I'm going to have to write that out now, or you're going to have to try and take notes while I'm speaking. And yeah, sometimes it would just be easier to start that as an email, because then the person can send you the links or the information that you're never going to remember in your head because it's too much. So sometimes if it's something that isn't going to be a quick answer, then sometimes it's better to start it by email, and then the person can just attach the information that you need or can point you in the right direction, because if they're going to email you anyway, you may as well start with an email. The next one, I know you're busy, but if somebody's busy, they probably don't want to be called all the time. If somebody is kind of in and out of meetings all the time, sometimes it's just more polite to arrange a meeting. If there's something that is going to take a bit more time, don't kind of ask the person to do it when you know that they're busy. Find a time when they do have time for you and kind of fit it into their diary so that they have your attention, you have their attention, and you can get the thing done. So rather than trying to chase up busy people, like maybe in the corridor, or just trying to grab 5 minutes, sometimes it shows more respect for their time, and it will be better for you if you do actually just ask for a quick meeting with somebody rather than trying to grab them when they maybe don't have time. And the thing that used to drive me crazy in one of my other jobs was when people call like, oh, did you get my email? It's like, yes, the email that came 2 minutes ago, and no, I haven't answered it yet, but that doesn't mean that you need to call me about it. It was generally somebody whose emails didn't need a response straight away. But there was this one guy who always did it. And I knew as soon as his name came up in my inbox that the phone would ring in a couple of minutes and it would be him asking if I'd got it. I mean, our email system isn't that bad that the emails disappear into some black hole never to be seen again. I would have got it. But what he was really saying is, can you look at my email? Because I'm more important than all the other people who want your attention or who emailed you. And I appreciate that sometimes emails are really important, that you do need to speak to somebody straight away. If something, I used to work in quite a fast moving environment where if something big happened, we needed to respond to it quickly. I'm not talking about things like that. I'm talking about people who kind of think that their email is the only one that you are dealing with. Their problem is the only problem that you're dealing with. And that is kind of annoying because, I do answer emails. There are colleagues that I used to work with who never answered their emails and were really unreliable. So if it was somebody like that, then I could understand it. But I do respond to emails. Maybe not the second that they come in if I'm doing something else at the time or something a bit more important, but I do get back to them. So it's a really bad message that you send if you call people as soon as you've emailed them, because it's just saying like, hey, drop everything. I'm more important than anything else you could possibly be doing. And that's not the way to build a good working relationship with people. So yeah, there are some other resources that I've written about telephone skills, and I can certainly add them to the show notes page for this podcast episode, because it's definitely good to have good telephone skills and to be able to speak to people on the telephone. But also remember that it's not everybody's preferred way of working, and some people will be much more comfortable using email. So if you feel like that as well, then that could be a good way for your working relationship to develop with them. And of course, there are people that go the other way. So writing for them is really difficult. Getting their thoughts down is really difficult. So they will prefer to speak to you on the telephone. So, be aware of the people that you're dealing with. And of course, if you have a customer facing role and you have people calling all the time, then you're not going to be able to get away from that. And I'm not suggesting people should get away from it. I'm just suggesting that, you don't have to feel bad if you don't use the phone for everything, because sometimes other ways of getting the job done are more effective. And who doesn't want to be effective? So I will, this is also a blog post, so I will link the blog post on the show notes page, which this time will be englishwithkirsty.com/podcast/episode 145. And also I will link a couple of other telephone type posts that are more about how to do things when you are speaking to people on the telephone. But this, I just wanted to take a different angle because, so many companies say, oh yeah, just get on the phone. And really, sometimes we have other tools at our disposal now, and sometimes they're a bit more effective. So also, if you have anything that you would like me to speak about in future podcasts, please let me know. You can email me at podcast@englishwithkirsty.com, or there is also a contact form on the show notes page, which again is englishwithkirsty.com/podcast/episode 145. And also, if you want to, then there is also the sign up form for the newsletter there. So the newsletter comes out once a month. The September one will be coming out soon. And that gives you information that is available across the English with Kirsty site, because there are other things happening that are not just on the podcast, the blog, the Facebook group, various other things, and some content that is only for newsletter readers. So if you're interested in that, it only comes out once a month, so it won't fill up your inbox too much. But it's general English. There is an emphasis on business English, but there are other things in there as well for people who want to improve their English. So have a good week and have fun learning English. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the English with Kirsty podcast. If you have any questions or comments, my email address is kirsty@englishwithkirsty.com, or you can go to www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast,
where you'll find information about the individual episodes.